Hey everybody, Wendy Clinky from Blue Cat Studio. I teach you how to paint. Tomorrow is Dr. Seuss's birthday, so tonight I figured we would get ahead of the game and do just a quick little ode to the doctor and of course the cat in the hat. So I just kind of sketched out this design, went on Google. Literally, that's all I did. I sketched a hat with a pencil, some color pens, and that's going to be our design. Keep it simple. So we're going to start with the background, and I'm using a greenish, bluish kind of tone. It is called Green Lagoon by Deco Art Americana. You could also go with the Key West from Apple Barrel. I don't even know how old that bottle is. And we're just going to get like a basic coat here. I'm going to mostly stay away from the hat, but if I get a little on, that's fine too. Might get the bow a bit. This is your chance to be sloppy and not really stress out about it. Let me switch this one screen here. Okay, so if you want to comment, you need to accept StreamYard so that it can see you. I'm using an app that allows me to ensure that we're recording this so that we can use it again, and also so you can see both screens. That way I can see your comments, I can see your face, or no, you can see my face. That's what it is. And you can see my work surface. All right. So I am feeling like this color is a little bit too green. I wanted paler, so I'm going to dab some white in here, and I'm just going to get to blending. I really wanted a little bit more of a bluey, pale turquoise. It's way too green for my taste. I don't know about you guys. Well, at least take it to seafoam, right? There we go. Yeah, that white made a big difference. Thank goodness. Okay. So after I got the basic sketch on here, just kind of freehanded it. I went ahead and used the, what's it called? Permanent marker to kind of get the design outlines. That way I had the freedom to kind of go nuts with my painting, and if I ended up covering stuff up, it wouldn't matter because I can still see what I'm doing here. So I really love that little trick to allow me to paint right over my designs instead of having to wait to get the design on top of a base coat and waiting for that base coat to dry. And moms, we ain't got time for that. Just look at all the shortcuts we can find. All right, just get a gold coat. Whoops, missed a little spot there. I'm trying as much as possible to kind of maintain the strokes in roughly, similar direction so that everything's kind of going back and forth for this guy. Oh, you know what? These sleeves are going to not be burgundy in a minute. There we go. I'm getting to the point where most of my clothes have a little bit of paint on them. Most of my everything has a little bit of paint on it. Well, maybe not my underwear, but TMI. Okay. I'm going to call that a good... you know what? I forgot my water cup. Let's see. Can I improvise something right now? Yes. Yes, I can. We'll grab the not coffee cup. And I will just attack my drinking water and pour that in. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and offload some of that paint from my brush just onto a scratch paper here, and then go ahead and rinse it. And after I've gotten a good rinse on that, grab a paper towel, dry it off. And since we want to, respect your time here, I am going to quickly turn on my hair dryer to let this base coat dry. That'll make it a lot easier. Here we go, to get the next coats. Sorry, kitty. Okay, perfect. See how fast that was? Now this is all dry. And I don't have to worry about messing and blurring. And it didn't scare the cat. She's curled up right here next to me on my other chair. It's adorable. All right, let's go ahead and get some white coat on here. So you could really use a couple of different brushes. I'm still using the square brush just because it's very convenient and it's right here. Move this picture a little bit. There. And so for this guy, the brim of the hat or rim of the hat was white. And it will need a couple of coats, but even so, it does not have to be a perfect white. If I wanted perfect white, I'd just leave the canvas blank. But honestly, that's a pet peeve for me. So we are good. All right, there we go. Allow that to wrap around a little bit. So kind of bringing it back behind the stovepipe of Mr. Kitty's, Mr. Cat in a Hat's thing. So again, you know, when you're just sketching for fun or you don't know what to do, you can always go on the internet and just find a thing and use it to practice, right? Now, I can't go ahead and make money on something like this, but there's no reason I can't paint and have fun and just be goofy for my own amusement. And we are celebrating Sam I Am. You have to write in the comments who your favorite Dr. Seuss character is. Is it like Horton? Or is it the Lorax? Or who? Fox and Socks? So many options. Or rather, what's your favorite Dr. Seuss story? Here we go. You're getting that fun little hat done. And some of this red, the black line's showing, so I'm gonna just come back and get a smidge more on. Now, what I'm liking actually is that some of the green underlay, the green is still showing through, and I'm not sure that's a bad thing, really, because it's mostly on the edges, so it's actually adding like that shading that I was planning on adding in with some blue or black. Maybe we can get away with it with green. I don't know. Let's take a break and go with the red, then we'll add the shading. So offloading my brush again, rinse, 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 rinse. And this is a super quick painting. We're here just having some fun, doing our ode to the ultimate king of children's stories. All right, here we go. I'll start down on the bow tie. You know, it's like the more I look at that bow tie, the more it reminds me kind of like the Wild West old fashioned, because it's really a big kind of bowy bow versus a traditional, you know, man's tie. Or it like reminds me of all those Western, like Little House on the Prairie type things that we used to watch. Or Bonanza, actually. Bonanza. That was my favorite TV show in my youth. Not so much as a kid, but when I was in college, I would wait tables and I'd get home from my shift late at night. I'd have homework to do. I lived alone. I'd be a little bit lonely, so I'd throw on Bonanza. I felt like I learned all my morals from Bonanza. All right, just get a good coverage here. Again, some of that green shading is kind of showing through, and adding some variation to the red, and that's fine because we can come back in after it's dried, add a second coat. I'm worried I'm going to smear in that way, so we're actually going to just give it all a quick blow dry again. As I'm sitting here like blowing this dry, I'm looking going, oh my gosh, I broke some of my rules. I always say, smooth your paint out, make sure there's no paint ridges. And I'm like, 1, 2, 3, 4. I see 4 paint ridges, which isn't my best record, but that's okay. All right, so still using the flat brush, because the flat brush is pretty nice for getting edges. Don't be intimidated or scared to rotate your canvas around as you're doing work. I know I talk about this all the time, but it really does make a difference in terms of being able to get to all the different parts and get to them in a way that works for you and in a way that's effective. Oh yeah, I'm so glad we just blow dried that, because needing to get up on some of that white, and that would have made a big pink mess in a hat that is supposed to be red and white. Sneak up and kind of make sure that edge is a bit in parity with the next one. Coming together. Now this is sort of a meandering, beat up old stovepipe hat, so I'm going to let it go in and then come out again. You see how let's see, we did that. It kind of almost created a little V shape. It gives it that look of being old. And then on this side, it's going to be a little bit longer. So it has that scrunched up. And my lines weren't perfect here. I'd meant for things to be a little bit more parallel and wavy. But I think that it kind of narrowing on one side ended up being a really good, or a very useful and yeah, a good mistake. It worked out. And so just because you don't get exactly what you intended when you're putting paint down, or when you're drawing or sketching a design, it's okay. You can just kind of work with what ends up on the canvas or on your work surface. Go with it. Sometimes it ends up better than intended. Just like this background turquoise is way greener than I'd hoped for. I wanted like a pale, like a little bit more Tiffany blue, but I got this green color, and honestly, I think it's working, and it's kind of pulling the shadows. Right now I'm going to have it kind of blup out here a little bit. So the key is, if you're going to make it a lumpy hat, just make sure that the ends meet, so that the corners of each of these red stripes, they do sync back with the white. So as long as you start from the same edge, you can get as waggly as you want. And this one's also going to V in just a little. Yeah. And if the medium-sized flat or square brush is too much for you, you're feeling like, whoa, I'm going to get out those lines any minute, and it's making you nervous, it's okay to step down to a smaller brush. This one is a Royal Langanickle Zen size 2 flat. Actually a little bit on the larger side. I really like it. I love the long handles. All right, now we'll get the last bit. This one's a little bit more freeform. And in looking, most of the time, this particular character, the very top of his hat kind of goes off to one side. So we're going to give him a little bit of that off to one side. I'm sure there's a word for that, but I only have a noise right now, a mouth noise for that. So far, this is pretty much, if you include black and white, it's a 4-color painting. Sometimes it's fun to limit your color palette. Just do a couple of quick things. All right. I think it's pretty obvious where we're going with this one, right? It's looking cute, right? Okay, I like it. Okay. So on my palette, let's scoot this here and here. Oh, look, you can see my nasty paint water. That's cool. I'm going to just offload some of that red right here by the black. because I still had a lot kind of coming up in the bristles. Grab a tiny smidge of black. Can you see that? I have literally just kind of kissed the edge of the brush with some black. I'm going to work it into the red here. And I think that's probably all I'm going to need. And since I have more green sort of seepage over here, I'm going to choose this side for my shadows. In fact, I want a little bit more red just to make that a softer, smoother blend. So kind of coming from the right side of the hat, grab just along that edge and just kind of pull some shadow through a little bit. And since we've got a little kind of dollop on this side, I'm going to put some emphasis on that crease by kind of shading directly under it with some soft fluid lines. Extend a little bit along the base here. Get some more on this side. So the trick to shading stuff is you really kind of have to make some physics decisions, right? My hat is going to be light from this side and the shadow will fall on this side, and therefore I will always put the shadow on this side, right? You got to kind of make up like what are the rules for my painted world, and then you stick to them, and that is how you make it convincing. So this one here, we've again got another little V kind of in the side, a crinkle. Just grabbing that sort of darkened red. And then we've got it folding over here, so we definitely want to get a good chunk of a dark under there. Kind of along this side. Take a look at that. I'm going to bring in some of that shade along the bottom here, thinking that maybe it's kind of flopping over in front of us too. It's sort of hard to tell. He's not exactly the most realistic character, if I recall. Okay. So we'll allow the shadowing to really happen over here. Now this bow has shadowed itself rather fortuitously. However, I'm going to offload some of that paint. I just brushed it off, not bothering with making it perfect. And I'm going to give him a second coat because we really do have kind of some stripes going on. A lot of that green showing through underneath. So just kind of come through and try to get a little bit more even coverage. So intensifying the depth of the red where it was white underneath and covering some of the green parts. And we'll probably break out the hairdryer for this guy too. Sorry, he's upside down. Just trying to make paint's getting goopy. Make sure I'm coming at it from the right angle. Okay. One more coat here. Knuckle crack. There we are. Okay, now we have a distinct advantage here. The paint is wet. So we can again grab a tiny pinch. I'm literally almost just kind of tucking into that black. Grabbing more wet red over here. I just want to get the very smallest amount of pigment. Maybe a little bit more. Because, you know, it's really easy to go completely overboard with black. So we will add some shading kind of right here where the bow meets the centerpiece. To kind of keep those lines a little bit directional. A little bit of shading kind of right along the edge on the other side of that bow. Again, because they are behind that knot. So, only makes sense. There we go. To have some shadow. Little bits along there, maybe one or two bits kind of in the center. A little bit of darkness right here at the base of the bow, or the knot, that's the word I'm looking for, the knot. Yeah. Yeah. Then a smidge more, kind of right in here at the bottom of the thing. Little corner. Not corner, what's the thing? Like the little fold in the middle. Isn't that getting cute? I think he's fun. Okay, I'll go ahead and offload the paintbrush and then give it a good rinse. And I'm going to call this brush done for this painting. I'm still going to dry it off. Still kind of pinch as much of the water and pigment out of it as possible. Make sure you wash it with soap and water afterwards. I'm like, what are those words again? Yeah, wash it with soap and water afterwards. Otherwise, this nice fancy paintbrush won't be so nice and fancy in like short order. So from here, we're going to grab a fine liner. I'm going to go with one of my really fine guys. Can you see that? It's a super, super tight tip. We're going to use the black, and I'm just going to get the outline on the stripes, add a couple more fun whimsical details, outline the bow, and then we'll come in after that with a couple of white highlights just to really give it that finished look. So I'm going to do my best to keep the black only on the bristles and not get it all the way up into the ferrule or this metal part here that holds the bristles. I'm usually about 60% winning on that one. So we'll start down here and get the brim of the hat. Tricks with a fine liner is one, having a brush that really is super fine. If you've got a fatter brush, we're not going to be able to get these kind of lines. Now you could not cheat. You could also use a long toothpick or like a mini skewer. I have a little package of them sitting around here somewhere. But while they're sort of painful to use because they run out of paint super, super fast, they are really great for getting that fine line. Almost like a quill, like a feather quill or something. But it can be frustrating when you need instant satisfaction. Just saying. But this guy, he's still, he doesn't hold that much paint. So I am regularly dipping back in for more. And that's something that, you'll find over time as you do this. The other way to do it is with a black paint pen. Paint pens are really, well, the one thing that's really nice about them is we get, you draw and you write and you use a pen or a pencil like every single day, right? And so it's much more natural because you're so much more practiced. And so you can use a pink pen on this. My one frustration with the paint pen is that because the canvas surface is not completely smooth, it's a canvas pattern or cloth. Sometimes the wick, I don't know what the word is, or the felt, the little thing that actually carries the ink down that you draw with, kind of like, especially with some of the brands I've been using, it catches on that texture of the canvas and will spit. And then you end up with like black or whatever color splatters. And I'm kind of not okay with that. Maybe it just happens to me. I really don't know. So when in doubt, kind of just go with the fine liner. Although I tell you, there are some days where I'm like, I just need to draw this. I'm tired. But I generally also feel like if you've gotten a if you've ever picked up an art kit from me, it's come with a fine liner, and so I know it's much easier to guarantee that you've got access to that, at least for one of the paintings that you've done with me. So I do tend to also talk more about the fine liner than I do the pens. The paint pens, the other thing you have to be really careful of is if you're using them and your paint is not completely dry, like your acrylic paint that you've laid down with a brush, and you get the paint pen into that paint, that's pretty much the last time you ever used that pen. So if it also happened to be the first time you ever used that pen, wah wah. And those things run a couple bucks a piece. So, you know, they are awesome for someone who's experienced and takes care of their stuff. Not so awesome if you don't know the ins and outs ahead of time. And honestly, I love the feel of the paint going down with a brush. It's sort of smooth and silent. Getting that outline done. It just helps kind of finish off that definition. And keeps us in the world of whimsy, which is squarely where we like to be. Right, coming around here. Whoops. Yeah. Almost. So you notice I didn't do this edge yet, and that was mostly because my hand has been working over here. So I'm trying whenever possible to leave myself some space for not dragging my hand through wet paint, because I'm quite good at that. And usually by the end of any, you know, longer or bigger painting, this whole side of me has got some serious color going on. Sometimes significantly more than that too, right? All right, here we go. Almost there. This part does get, I don't want to say tedious, but maybe a little bit. There. Okay, since we've got the, I'm going to add a couple, let's see. I'll do a couple of cute sort of movement lines along here, here, here. Whoop, that's fine. So you notice that we just added some kind of lines in this zone to give it a little action, a little motion. A couple more here. So I still have that dark red, but I'm also adding some black nearby to kind of re-emphasize what we just did. And there's not really a tried and true rule for how we do this. I'm just trying to add motion, you know, make it a little bit more dynamic. Go ahead and outline the bow. My gosh, my daughter's making big, loud meowing sounds up in her room. I think she's online playing some game, so hopefully you can't hear that. Oops. And I'm getting a lot of gook on this one. Get a quick, just wipe down, kind of refresh it. Sometimes when you get paint kind of hanging out up at the top and not being used, it starts to coagulate and then messes with your ability to use the brush. So every so often it's good to just wipe it away and get a little bit of a fresh start. And then once we're done with this black outline, we'll come in with, we'll rinse off the fine liner, come in with some good white lines to just poof, pop a few spots, and we'll call it good. And then we can all celebrate the man, the myth, the legend, the Dr. Seuss. His birthday tomorrow, March 2nd. Turning it upside down, coming over here. Again, rotating it so I'm not reaching across the zones that I just painted. Here we are. This is a fun, easy one. Whoops. Got a paint bogey. Well, it's a big hunky chunk. See if I can smooth it. Good enough. Good enough. So since I'm here, I'm going to draw a couple of quick lines radiating out from the knot into the bow. A couple more. Boop. Almost there. So actually, since I'm here, I'm going to get the middle of this bow too with those lines, keeping it as fluid as you can. So again, when your paint starts to run out, instead of pressing down, you want to lift up and go get more paint. And you can tell your paint is running out because the lines start to kind of break and get almost choppy looking. That's getting kind of cute, right? I like it. I like it. Add a smidge more, a couple more dark lines over here to this section because it is kind of the shaded area. We didn't do too much shading with the dark, with the white, but that's okay. I don't think it really needs a ton. I also feel like this guy, it might be weird. Kind of want to add just some air whiskers, like just to kind of like ode to the face that's maybe gone invisible for a minute. So let's do that. Kind of do a circle here and a circle here so I know where my whiskers are going to come from. Draw a line out. Whoop. Whoop. Maybe a third one that kind of pops out here but doesn't actually touch. And here we'll go 1, 2, 3. Aww. Wait, where are we at? Oh, there we go. Okay, go ahead and offload as much of that black as you can. Give it a quick rinse. And we'll come in with the finishing touches, which are the little white highlights. And then we will call it good. Yep. Dipping into the white. So if there's a shadow on the underside, we're going to add a little highlight on the top of the bow. Pop. Or the knot. Little pop here. So again, sticking to those rules. If I think my shadows are on the bottom, then my highlights are kind of on the top. I might add just a smidge more kind of here. And it's okay for them to be somewhat broken lines. They don't have to be like all long continuous. In fact, sometimes it's more believable and just has that whimsical look, you know, when you kind of add little bits here and there. So we got a bow doing its thing. Now we'll go ahead and make the hat by adding little highlights along here. A little something, oh, right here. Thinking about how it's folding and how this particular, you know, how the cloth is acting. Where might the highlights be? Where might the light be catching? So the thing you want to kind of avoid, which it's really easy to fall into, is creating a pattern. If you create a really stark pattern, then suddenly your shading and your highlighting become a little bit less believable. A couple of dots here and there just to add a little something. I don't know what it is, but sometimes dots just, they're that funny finishing touch that makes the thing, it breathes life into it. There's a couple of well-placed dots. What do we got? Are we good? Okay, I'm gonna go quasi and add just tiny white little, just bits of highlight here and there on, sorry, I have to get it really close. Old eyes don't see so good up close. Other than getting in here and looking. I'm literally just putting little bits of white over some of the black, not to fully cover, but to almost like they're catching the light. That's one of those fine, almost like extra details. but I do like it. And there we go. We have a super cute hat celebrating one of our favorite childhood authors. I hope you have a great night or a great day. Thank you for joining us. And again, March 2nd, happy birthday, Dr. Seuss. Bye. Have a good night.